If you're watching this video, you're probably wondering about the best way to prepare for a technical coding interview. Now, why you should listen to me about this, I just kind of finished my rounds recently. I applied to about 30 different companies. I did about 20 kind of odd technical interviews, about 11 or 12 on-site, so that means like 5+ hours of technical interviews. So I went through it all. It was very exhausting, got my offers, got my job, but I learned a lot in the process, and I want to share some of the ways you could prepare for a coding interview. So the first thing that probably comes to mind, a lot of people know, is Leetco.com. That's a website where you can go and practice a lot of these common questions you get in interviews. So instead of building something, which you might get in an interview, some of these live coding interviews, it's really good to prepare for them using a site like Leetcode. Now, Leetcode, there's easy, medium, and hard problems. Different companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook might ask these kind of questions, but other companies, for example, startups and things like that might not go towards very deep on these. They might ask you more easier questions there just to see if you can code, and that's ultimately kind of what they're looking for sometimes. Things to consider on Leetcode, I think, is it's a great website to kind of practice, but it's not the best website for theory. That's why I recommend also Grocking, the coding interview, I think it's called. Yeah, Grocking the coding interview, if that's how you say it. That's kind of more the theory behind the practice. So there's two parts to Leetcode, the theory and the practice. It's really good for practice, but in the theory, Grocking the coding design interview or Grocking the coding interview is really, really good for getting down those concepts first, because once you understand the concepts, it's a lot easier to apply the things. If you don't really understand the solution that you're going to go, no matter what you try, you're not going to get to the final answer. Or if you're going to get to the final answer, it's not going to be efficient enough, and they might not accept it. So definitely recommend checking that out first before you go down the other path. I actually interviewed with somebody working at a big fan company that told me this approach. It was too late for me, but I think after I did that, I solidified a lot more concepts before I started coding or just practicing these questions mindlessly. The other thing, speaking of theory, is Grokking the System Design Interview. There's another book that's about more system design and whiteboarding. Those have very good examples on any kind of whiteboarding system design question, how to design things like a Twitter, like Twitter, Uber maybe, or even like a website like URL shorteners. All these kind of examples, practical examples of what kind of system goes behind them, especially when there's millions or tens of millions, 100 millions of users using the system, and how to design something for that. I got a lot of coding, or not exactly coding questions, but whiteboard questions like that. I got those a lot, and that book really helped. Now, if you're applying to a more senior position, one thing I recommend is kind of doing a lot of companies. That's what I did, and because when you do that, you kind of get used to the questions, you start practicing a lot more, and that's one of the things is like, you can practice these questions all you want, but once it's in front of somebody looking at you, it kind of gets a little bit scarier, and you can kind of make a lot of mistakes, and I know I did. So that's why I kind of tried to do as many as possible. The ones I really wanted, maybe I waited a little longer so I could be a little more comfortable. And that's exactly what ended up happening. I started to get a lot of momentum and confidence. So if you can't do this, I recommend a website called pramp.com. I'll put a link for it. I think that one has a free version. I still think it does, where you can see, you and other people who want to practice coding you get a question, and one of the person's the interviewer, the other person is the person doing the question, and you kind of practice doing it in front of somebody, because it's not something that you do on the job very regularly. When you pair program, I think it's a lot more casual. This one's a lot more like this person is deciding if you get this job or not, so it could be a little bit scary. So definitely getting that feeling is extremely important from like an emotional perspective, because mentally, psychologically, you could know the question but just freeze up. So definitely think about that. The last thing is definitely, in these kind of questions, have a short intro about yourself. Don't keep it too long, because you want to spend a lot on the question. So know that, rehearse that beforehand, and if you end up doing the question a lot faster than you anticipated, they might ask you some questions after, so be prepared to kind of have follow-up questions about the company or anything like that. They could be generic, anything like that. Just have them rehearsed and prepared beforehand. So I hope that helps you out. These are very simple tips, but I think they're very effective to kind of helping you navigate through a coding interview. So good luck, and let me know how it goes.